Um, so we're just gonna talk. So we'll get started. I'll welcome you. Um, and obviously you can explain why you want to be kept anonymous. Like,
Yes.
I understand, but I want you to explain because, and then at the end, I'll just ask if there's anything like, share your Facebook page, your Instagram page, whatever other things you want to share.
Yeah.
Yeah. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, welcome. Very, very special guest, and you want to be anonymous. So, tell us as much about yourself as you'd like before we get into our actual discussion, which is going to be a very heated one today. I'm excited to learn from you, and so share.
Okay. I'm 42 years old, Brazilian, living in Germany with a German father, a Brazilian mother. I am, let's say, an anarchist since I was 16. And I never knew I was a feminist until some years ago, where I got some radical feminist material, because as an anarchist, I thought we solve the problems like this, and then the situation will automatically get better for women, and I changed this opinion. And in Brazil, as I lived in Brazil, I was quite busy taking care of my life, so I couldn't be very active. But I reached a point where I live in peace, and I have, of course, difficulties, but I reached that point where I can use my time. I don't like to party so much anymore, so I got the time and energy to speak with women and share information, because I feel very isolated in when you really care for the environment and for politics, and don't like porn, and of course the gender topic. So some years ago, I found a page in the internet. It was called the Pussy Church, the of modern witchcraft, and it was like what I was searching. A page would talk about women's spirituality. They had made a church in the USA even, and it meanwhile it doesn't exist anymore. It was very, very hard for them because they were being harassed all the time. So they decided to focus on other things in real life. And I was doing the content for the page because, as I said, I reached a point where I had time and energy to talk to women. So I just volunteered and started creating the content, the images. And when they gave up, I asked them, please don't delete the page. I'm going to keep doing this material. And that's what I'm doing to escape the isolation that I feel, especially because I am an anarchist. As I said, I like politics. I don't like porn. I don't like party anymore. And there is a special part of the spirituality, because then for the left wing oriented people, I'm just like a little bit nuts, but I'm also like, since my childhood, since I was 12, I lost a cousin when I was 12, and I was raised Catholic, and suddenly the answers were not the right ones for me. So I started also to study every religion I could, and every book I could grab in my hands, and visit every religion I could, and get information. When I came to Germany, I was in a witch coven, and where I'm not welcome anymore because partially my views on gender, and that's it. That's what I can say about me and why I'm doing what I'm doing and why I'm talking to you anonymously. But it also has a reason. I'm also very shy with cameras. I am also a little bit vain. So if I wear a mask, I don't have to worry. Okay, am I looking all right or not?
Fair.
I can't. Okay, I'm a radical feminist, but I cannot. I am like that's another reason, and because then you can focus on other stuff, and there is also no competition, no comments. There is also less room to be attacked in if I'm going to be attacked.
I actually, so I had two trans, a man to woman and a woman to man, on my podcast at one point. And the trans woman who was born as a boy who transitioned into being a woman, she got the sex change, she did everything. She's got a vagina. She's woman now essentially. And I posted the video, she reached out maybe a couple hours after I posted it. And she said, "Listen, I'm getting a lot of comments. I'm getting a lot of hate mail. I need you to take it down. I really need you to." And I said, "Yeah, I will. Like, can I ask why? Like, what's happening?" And she basically said that a lot of people in the transgender community reached out to her saying that they don't think that it's good for her to share her story because it was a very successful transition, and there's so many transitions that are not successful that it's not good to advertise a successful transition. So then I said, okay, well, I want to dig a little deeper and I want to find someone who has detransition and has not had success, and talk to them, and whether it's man, woman, whatever. And it's been impossible to find someone who wants to talk about their detransition. And I think that this is such a hot topic right now for, like, I talked about, or I try to talk about with my husband. My husband's like, I don't want to talk about it. It doesn't, like, we're talking it into an existence. And I'm like, no, this is a real thing. And this is a real problem that's happening because we have a daughter. I'm a woman. Like, there's women, and there's a lot of issues. It's not just one of, kids are being harmed with, they're allowed, they're going through puberty or whatever, and they're confused with life. So they say, okay, I'm going to be a boy. And then their whole life is fucked, basically. Like, that's just one of the problems. There's so many other problems when it comes to the correctional facilities and men just saying, oh, I'm a woman now, even if they have harassment, rape, crazy charges on them against women, and now they're in a correctional facility with women. Like, yeah, they might be prisoners or imprisoned for whatever charge, but that doesn't mean that they should be subjected to men who have hurt women or, done crazy things. So it's been an interesting thing because what you're saying, I think, is so true. It's so easy right now, especially with COVID and everything, to feel like alone, like to just feel by yourself as a woman, which is, I don't know if you saw this in one of my episodes, but that's why I even started this podcast, because I had a baby and I was in quarantine and I was like, what do I, like, there were no mommy and me groups. There were no nothing. I couldn't, my mom isn't, like, she's far away. My mother-in-law is far away. My husband and I are both transplants to New York City. So we have friends, but we don't have family. Like, I don't have a nanny. I don't have anyone to ask questions or nothing. So it's a very interesting thing that you're saying, because it's very, very accurate. And I think that women in general are very competitive with one another. So it makes it really tough to try to weed out that crap of women just being nice to each other, let alone men coming in and being women and making it that much worse, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's complicated, because I never had a problem with, at my time, we would say transsexuals, and or even the LGBT community that at my time of 15, 16, even younger, you would call LGBS, like you were in Portuguese, of course. And the S would be for the sympathizer, or sympathetic, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I would be then this S, and I would have no idea that the situation would come to this point where I think that transsexuals are being exploited to a whole new narrative. They are not being really represented. The transgender phenomenon is not really, I don't see it like the same thing. Many people are being prepared before they are going to the therapist to tell the story, like, hey, you say like this and that, because they know the narrative from transsexuals. They really have this body dysphoria. And it seems very artificial to me. Sorry, there is a study that was censored, and the name that was called is rapid onset gender dysphoria. It's such a phenomenon that has been observed in schools. When teenager girls, for example, when one of them in a peer group becomes transgender, then you have this overload of love and the interest, and then suddenly one after another are also identifying as transgender. And you also have the phenomena on the internet, and it's complicated. And I really thought I never thought that this would come to the point where this whole suffering that people tell it is would come to the law instead of protecting the people from the suffering. They are motivating it.
Yeah.
So I think it's very unfair when we are called TERFs and we would hate people. And first, I have to say that radical feminism is also a very expensive set of ideas, and not all women who say they are radical feminists are really purists.
Hold on, I want to talk up a couple things on that. So I want you to explain the radical feminism, because I don't know if I know what that is, and I don't know if many Americans do, or maybe they do. I don't know. I could be in my own little sect. And then also, what you were saying about with kids and stuff, what's so interesting, I actually just saw this video. I don't know if you saw it on Instagram, but there's a mom recording, and it's somewhere in America. I could tell she has like a Southern accent. She's recording her little boy, and she says, "How old are you?" And he says, "7." And she says, "That's not your age. How old are you?" And he says, "7." And she goes, "No, you're not. You're 4." And he has like makeup on, and he's all done up like a girl, and he's only 4. And so she says, "How old are you?" And he says 7, and he's lying, obviously. And then she says, "Are you a boy or girl?" And he says, "I'm a girl." And it's this little clip of like 30 seconds. And it's like, she's creating her own narrative of, you're lying about your age, but he's not going to lie about his gender. Because he says, "I'm a girl." And it's like, just because, like, he doesn't even know his age. You think he knows what sexy is? Like,
that's completely normal, actually.
Yeah, I just don't understand how, like, if anything, this boy's gonna grow up and be pissed at his mom for releasing this video of him that she probably put the makeup on. Like, she's doing it for likes and views and clicks. It's like, it's a sick thing.
Because I have to tell you about it. it has been observed and talked about. That's a kind of the Munchausen by proxy analogy symptom of, I don't know, it's even a famous series and case from Ruby Rose. It was an American girl where the mother, it's really a series right now, and it was released maybe 1 year ago or two, where the mother raises her, giving her medication to her to become very, very ill. And she shows her off. She has a special condition at first where she doesn't develop very much or was very small, so she would pass for a child very long. And the mother gave her very many medications, and she believed she was ill until the time where she find a boyfriend online, and she killed her mother to escape. And then people found out, or maybe a little bit before this, I don't remember exactly, that the mother was lying to her all her life. She never has been ill, and many people make analogies to this Munchausen by proxy to the transgender parents that are pushing their children who are very young at age to be transgender, so them, the parents, have the attention they need.
Basically, that's what's happening. It's disgusting.
That's why you have, because if you, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back in time, because I'm going to go back to reality. As I was 15, 16 years old, talking to gay friends, many of them would talk to me. Of course, I said I was a girl when I was a child. And of course, I played with Barbies. And even one of them who was a grown up, grown up. We were 15 now, we were teenagers, but we're still friends. And he said at the time, if only, oh my God.
It's okay, I'll beep it. It's okay. It's okay.
I have to go back. So, how do I go back to this?
No, just keep going. I'll cut it out. I'll beep it. So your friend says to you.
Yeah, so my friend said to me at the time, he was not a grow up, he was 15 like me, and he said, "Girl, if only I had a pussy." And he would keep talking like this. Of course, he desired that because his life would have been so much easier because he suffered so much with his parents. The mother was, with the time, she became very accepted, but with the father, it took a long time. And he himself, he went in a spiral and first used drugs and was very promiscuous, and now it's all set up with time, but it made him suffer a lot. So I think many parents, and as it was said at the time, and many parents still do say, especially in Brazil, they prefer a dead child as a gay child. They prefer, it's terrible.
Really? That's what they say?
They really say it.
I never heard that.
Because Brazil is very religious and very hypocrites.
Well, it sounds like the problem isn't the kid, it's the parent. It's like when you're trying to teach your dog. It's not the dog that's a problem, it's the owner.
Yeah, but as we said, there were transsexuals. And when you have the same situation, you can, it's like in populism or propaganda, you have half truth, or you take something that really exists and you build it up something on the top of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's really hard when you to debunk it, because when you try to debunk it, you have this and this and this, and you have the, as you talked before, about the women that sometimes are also speaking some vitriol, and they participate also in this.
So I feel like there's a whole bunch of different things, but I want to, because now with social media, and I think I see it on both sides of the left and the right, or the pro and against, or however you want to differentiate and classify. It's an interesting thing with keeping your identity concealed. And I understand, I totally get it. Explain why you feel like, because the other side of it is like this woman with a little boy, she wants to be famous. I'm guessing, right? Like she wants to be famous by making her little boy say he's a girl.
Yeah, she doesn't even have to be famous. She has just to reach followers enough, and you are internet famous, but you have then your little bubble. I feel this myself. I do not involve anything. That's why I don't have merch with money, because it makes my life very much easier. I don't build hopes on it, because I know I'm harassed. I know maybe just one email can take it all down. But
So that's why you want to stay anonymous.
not only I am shy, and I never wanted to show my face and be recognized. That even I know it's not megalomania, and I have such a small reach, but I don't know. I also don't like the energy of it, of people then posting selfies, or I love to see the women doing it, but I, like you do, like really showing that you can be strong and a mother, and that's very inspirational. But for myself, I'm also a little bit vain, and I wouldn't just appear without makeup and everything. So I prefer it like this,
Okay.
because I also have if it's necessary someday that I show my face. If I lose this shyness, maybe, but at first I prefer like this.
It's in what you said is so interesting because I think that there's this thing with women, like women that are women at birth, that for their life, when they dress or they project themselves a certain way, if they get themselves done up, if they wear makeup and heels and all the stuff, it's really looked at as like, well, why are you? And maybe it's because I'm in New York. I don't think so. I think it's everywhere with women. Well, why are you doing that? Who are you trying to impress? Or kind of looked at as like, well, she's a slut. Where when trans women, men who become women, they get done up and they wear the heels and they do all the stuff. It's like, oh, well, you go, girl. Like, it's looked up. Do you know what I'm talking about? They really do it. And it's like, how does that even make sense? Like, I don't know. It's
That's
confusing.
misogyny. That's misogyny. That it's so rooted that it doesn't matter how you call it. The women, and when I say women, I say the born women, because there are no other kind of women. Trans women for me are trans women.
Yeah.
I prefer, out of respect, not for everybody, but for the people who really, really have dysphoria and pain, and not for the activists. They are trying to gaslit people. Really, for for respect, and also as a kind of strategy that I don't get uh, kind of any kind of sue or process for it. So I say trans women are trans women, are male, and I will treat them in the society as like anybody else, men or women, or trans women or trans men. I will show respect for everybody. But in the laws, I think it must be a little different.
Well,
But
and I
I will
think,
show respect, and I just want the liberty to know the truth.
well, that's why it's kind of confusing. And I did talk about it with the woman, the trans woman that I had on my episode a while back, of like, because she could pass as a woman. Like, you could look at her and be like, "Mm." But you, like, if I were to see her, I would think she was a woman. I wouldn't even question. I wouldn't even
Yes, yes,
second
I
guess
think
it.
I missed the conclusion, or the link that why you have this is misogyny, because also unconsciously, even the people who are into this gender theory bubble, unconsciously they know who are the women or who are not, and they demand it. And when the trans women pass, they are also demanded femininity.
Well, so that's where I'm going with this. Is it's so confusing because if you want to be a woman, if you're a man and you want to be a woman, fine, fine, whatever. But why do you have to state and make it so known that you were a man? Like, can't you just go about it quietly so no one knows? Like, why does it have to be all these different separations and dividers of, like, if you got your penis cut off and you have a vagina and you got implants and you're now, feel better about your body dysmorphia or whatever, and you consider yourself a woman, okay, fine.
Because we are being prepared, this is a cultural revolution where people are being prepared to believe that men can be women, women can be men, that peace is war, and that freedom is slavery.
It's so confusing.
It's of course it's the goal of it, and there is many corporations behind it, because it's an immense industry, and this confusion, this gaslighting. Sorry, I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm Brazilian. I'm going to make some mistakes. We are really being prepared. There's so much money involved. We have to accept it. And I don't know if you read 1984 from George
George
Orwell.
Orwell, yeah.
It's double think.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. You have to be prepared to believe that since you say you are a woman, you are a woman. You are non-binary. So
I think
like
that
you are
also what's so
neither.
confusing about it is it's only certain things that they allow. So there was this guy, Ali, Ali, that was, I think he's British or something, and then he decided that he wants to be Korean, so he did all the sex, like,
Yes.
but that's not
London,
okay.
Ali London, I think.
Yeah, that one. Why isn't it okay to decide you want to be a different race? Why can you decide you want to be a different gender but not a different ethnicity?
Yeah, that's. There are some guys already that, or at least one I know from one zoo, where the guy just want. I think it was in Holland, where the guy just said, "I identify as 27." I'm like, I don't know. I'm just giving a number here. I'm 65, but I identify as 27. Why can't I?
Yeah, why not?
And it's really just absurd. As I said before, I do support people and I know people suffer a lot. And I am sorry that I have to, or I feel a calling to talk about it the way I do, but it's to call attention for it. But it's a kind of absurd situation. You respect it, you understand it, but it's kind of absurd. I do not agree how it's being handled, and I must be free to say it.
Correct.
Because I do not hate anybody. I dare you show where is the hate. There is no hate. I just and simply I disagree, and I have reasons for that. Just listen to me, because I don't agree that these things now, that gender, that is a feeling that changes a thing, an idea that separates humans from nature. That's what upsets me very much. We need to get back to nature to save the planet. And how are we going to do this? We take out ourselves from the animal kingdom when we are kind of females of every other species are females, but we are something else. What are we? This is really a transhumanistic agenda that's been going on. And I simply do not believe in it, but I do not hate.
I feel like
and I wanted to say that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Maybe I don't have experience in talking to someone like this, and I'm kind of nervous. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I promise to practice.
No, but I do think that, so a lot of the women that I've had on, it's very much like, we don't hate anyone. It's not, oh, well, you shouldn't do that, but you're bad. It's not. It's, you're impeding on me and my daughter and the woman, you're impeding on us. Like, as a woman, we've had to fight for so many rights that we now have. And it's like, and now we're just like, we're birth bearers, we're milk machines, we're not women. And it's like, that's crazy to even have that in that idea. So it's almost like, because we're speaking up and we're not just saying, okay, then that means that we hate. And that's not the case. Like, we're allowed to have our own opinion and still respect you, not you, but in general, these people. And okay, you have your opinion, whatever it is. But for me, the real question is, how do we as women, I don't know if it's band together, or how do we get these things fixed? Like, how do we, do we sign a petition? Is there, like, what is it that we can actually do to make it so we don't get completely fucked over? That's I think, the underlying thought process of, what can we do to make sure that this doesn't happen?
Okay, first I want to say why is also something that is so hard to change, and why it like abortion is so problematic in many places, because it's very practical to erase male violence. As you are seeing, rapists are being sent, pedophiles are being sent to female jails. The statistics are being warped by that, because in many places the statistics, then it's a female crime. So after Me Too, how interesting is this? After Me Too, where we exposed male violence, we have this backlash where we are erasing male violence and increasing the statistic of female criminality. So first, this is the reason why, and also because it's a thing of much money involved. Plus, this point where it erases male violence is very difficult to change. So what can we do to make it happen? Well, I don't know the answer, but I have something to say. What's my opinion? I don't know if it's right. But for what I've heard, it's talk about it, talk about it, talk about it, and resist. When everybody's making around what's your pronouns, what's your pronouns, nah, 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 you say, I'm sorry, I don't feel comfortable about it, I don't understand, I don't want, have courage and talk about it.
Yeah.
Like me, you can say, it's easy to talk about it when you are wearing a mask. No, because I'm wearing a mask here for something on the internet, but I am a person, I talk with people in real life. I am isolated, as I said, for this for what moves me, for telling about my feelings, for speaking about why I don't like porn and rape culture and what is feminist. That's what lets me. But for meeting someone and for small talk, of course, I meet people and I also talk about it. And so we have to talk about it. Write the politics. I'm an anarchist. I'm against the system as it is. But what can we do now since we live in a system like the system? Be ethic, parents. You go to the school of your kids. You look what's on the program here. I don't know how can I call it. What's the
Like the
learn
curriculum.
program here? Yeah, what's the curriculum?
Mm-hmm.
A curriculum here. Why are you teaching this? I do not agree with this. Then you can write for companies and say, for example, that when they use inclusive language where they avoid to name women, because I'm not against inclusive language. I'm against erasing the word women. That we don't have a word that describes ourselves as a class, a sex class. But if then if they are erasing the word women, you write there. You write them an email, you talk to the people, and maybe do a page in the internet. We have to talk about it, and have courage. And even if you, like me, don't want to show your face, you can talk to the people around you and get real information. That's also very important to mention today because I said about radical feminism that was very also becoming kind of a spectrum, not because it is really like this. It's a very definite theory and set of ideas and political ideas from the second wave feminism around the 70s. But when I said it's very now bright because you cannot control anything anymore, and there are people that are saying they're radical feminists and spreading some ideas that have nothing to do with it. I myself talk about spirituality, and for many radical feminists, that's done some maybe for them, not exactly, though historically, I like it's also came from this time with Susanna Budapest and Mary Daly, but many people will say whatever. So you have to inform yourself and get information from the right sources. If you are a radical feminist, if you are transgender identified, you have to stop being afraid of looking at third sides because you are isolating yourself in a bubble. You have to look really for books, not only for internet or YouTube. How qualified are people in YouTube? So that's what you can do. You buy books, you support the people who are doing this. I don't do it for any money because, as I said, it's for me simpler. But there are people that really need this help. So there are many things you can do. I hope I didn't forget anything very important.
It's what you're saying is so true, and it's so accurate. Like just stand up, have courage, say what you got to say, state your opinion. But what I'm realizing, and I started to mention it a little bit ago, is with this, it seems like it's really hard for people to just stand up and say, unless they obviously they want to do it as a keyboard warrior or whatever side. So for example, I reached out to a friend, a girl who I used to train with, and she's a great athlete, and she knows she's a strong girl, like amazing, amazing, amazing. And I said, hey, if you know any women who are willing, who or you, if you want to come on and talk about the transgender situation and how it affects women and how it's something that we as women need to talk about. And I'd love if you could connect me with someone that or if you want to talk about it, I'd love to have you on. And she was like, listen, I have and she does, she has a huge brand, and she's like, I can't deal with the PR backlash of that. And I said, yeah, I understand. I understand that. And I think that anyone who has a business or anyone who is like, trying to work or progress in life, they just feel afraid, or they feel like they can't, they're not able to stand up and say what they got to say, which is why, I obviously understand why you want to wear your mask and you want to have your own privacy so you can have a life outside of this, I guess, essentially. So it's an interesting thing because we talk about it. Like I talk about it with my girlfriends. I talk about it, with my grandma, with my mom, like with people around me. But it just seems like it's not enough to, unless we do it publicly. And then publicly, that's when no one wants to do it. Does that make
Yes,
sense?
yes, of course, I admire and I thank every one of the women who really show their faces and talk about it. Of course, Jennifer Bilek and Kelly J.S. or Posey Parker and all the women from the Women Human Rights Campaign. We have some ideas that are not exactly the same, but I admire them. They are doing such a great work. They have such courage. They are from the women liberations. There are so many women. I cannot even mention all of them, and I'm very thankful. But if you remember, when you asked me to talk about it, I told you, hey, they are going to tell you you're talking to a third, maybe you are going to be harassed. So I understand this woman you talk about, and I understand every one of them. But you can also, it's important that we show our faces.
Or not. I mean, does it matter?
About it. I think not everybody is ready or has the structure. For example, as I said, I am Brazilian and I live in Germany. I have family here from my father, but I was raised there, and my support is really there. So there is also a question of livelihood,
Yeah,
she has
I get it.
A great brand. Maybe she does the social media on her own, and she cannot. She's just don't have the capacity. So I understand, and I'm thankful for everyone that shows it. But you can also talk. For example, you don't have to do it in public. For example, you have your social media account, whatever it is. You don't have to be public for that. You can talk to your friends, and then you have just for your friends and defend women's rights and explain, at least in this small group of people. Then you don't have to go and publish things publicly, and maybe for your employer, or if you are searching for a job that is accessible to everyone. You can also post moderate things, but when you write to your politician, you can do it all anonymously. I suggest you do not.
Right.
When you write to politicians, but you can also explain why you are doing today this not you don't want to show your name or don't want to have your name revealed. But we got
Talk about it.
to talk about it, and we got to do it. And as I said, I think before we started to film it, I don't know, I never had ambition to show my face or be known, not even in a small circle. I don't like having a YouTube channel. I just don't feel well with it. So you can do it all the ways,
Yeah.
but you have to talk about it, and
You do. That's it. You're right. The other thing I was going to ask you about is to explain. So there's a bunch of things going on. One, I want you to explain these terms because they're still kind of foreign to me, and I don't understand why we can say, because this is it's between you and I, it's not, we're not shaming anyone. We're not saying we don't like you. It's not that. Like, we accept you, be who you want to be, but don't put it on us. Like, it shouldn't affect me. It shouldn't affect my daughter. It shouldn't affect my sister. Like, it shouldn't affect the woman around us. Do you enjoy yourself? Have a good life, kind of thing. So there's these terms that are derogatory, or however you want to say them, the turf and the smurf and the whatever they are. And then, so those. And then the other thing is to explain the feminism or the different levels of it, the radical feminism, this feminism, because I never saw myself as a feminist. Like, it's okay for my husband to open the door for me. It's okay for the guy to open the, you know what I mean? Like, and I think that there's so many different levels of it that it makes it a little like, what, like, I guess confusing maybe?
okay, a moment, I'm just writing what I have to talk about, because I notice that sometimes I lose myself. So I'm writing the branches and Polish gentleman. The problem, I would say, is we do not hate, but there are people that really do hate.
Right, and that's the problem.
And as I said, there with transactivism, that not everybody thinks the same, or not that all transactivists may be violent or trans-identified people. It's like the radical feminism. You have an online kind of jungle, and you can say whatever you say and say you are whatever you say you are, and you are kind of representing something that you are not. So this is why I think it's very hard when you say we do not hate, but there are people that hate. There are people that kill homophobia and transphobia in countries like Brazil. And really, something, it's not like we are talking here on idea. I think it's even irresponsible, because when you talk about transphobia, saying a woman, only women have cervixes, it's transphobia. Don't be stupid. In Brazil, people are killed because they are gay. Really, because they are seen kiss each other on the streets. They may be murdered. When trans women are, unfortunately, they are often prostituted in Brazil. Where on the streets, then the boys and playboys and stupid guys, they come and they throw eggs on them, or they really beat them and rob them. That's transphobia.
Yeah, that's horrible.
So people have to respect, and just do not use this word in vain. If you are going to, it's also erasing real transphobia and real violence and men violence, because there are not we women that are doing this, and we are not also motivating people to do any kind of violence. I do not support any kind of violence, but that's where I wanted to talk.
Well, it seems like when people have nothing else to say, they have no other comeback. They just say, oh, well, you're a phobe, you're a transphobe, you're this, you're that, instead of actually responding to the actual question or the problem or whatever it is.
Exactly. Everybody is being put in the same pot, let's say like this, because they are really transformed, but it's also a kind of populism and a kind of strategy, because then when this all confusion happens, and that's why also we are so hard to come through, because again, it erases the real problem, the real root of the violence, and it creates confusion. So that's a real problem, because it's also kind of, it's a strategy, you know. It's very, very hard, because it's, as I said before, you have something, you put a little truth and you build a narrative, and it's so hard to debunk. So then when you say, they are feminist terrorists, they are haters, it's hard to debunk, because when you Google it, it's a corporate thing, I said. When you Google it, you just have things saying, the Turks are this and this and this and that. And it's really not the truth. Even TERF is a name that we do not like, we do not accept, because we are not transgender exclusionary. You know, we do not believe in transgender theory. We think that what we call gender are actually stereotypes, and we want to abolish these stereotypes, actually.
So interesting.
So, but when people say, trans exclusionary, and you Google in the internet, and you look in Wikipedia, and you see, because they are bad, they do this and they do that. How can you? We are just a grassroots movement. We are not powerful people on this side, except for J.K. Rowling. They are not really powerful. As you said before, the people do not show their faces, though they agree with it, and they maybe make donations, because when radical feminist crowdfundings are pretty successful, when they are allowed to stay online, because even crowdfundings are just taken down. So it's complicated when people don't have access to real information. And now the women are, I have to mention this, now women are owning the word, because of, we are so unfairly name it, we are this and we are that, turf and surf, and whatever you name it, or like just like slut or bitch, you can explain it. People are acting like your opponents, they're like they are in a cult, so no argument is going to remove this stigma. It's really complicated. And also, like with, as I said, with radical feminism, there are, because you asked, there are another branches of feminism, and that what we say, we call it liberal feminism, is like, it's a kind of word for the third wave feminism, where it started like a backlash to radical feminism, where then you have these ideas of gender that is only a social construct, that you are whatever you say you are, because there is a performance, and that porn is actually liberating, and prostitution is liberating. And when you have in the mainstream this narrative of feminism, a narrative where they say feminism is equality of both sexes, what we radical feminism say, this is not what feminism is. We want liberation. We don't want equality in a world where men are behaving bad. We just want to be free. We want to have the same rights, and we are going to fix this shit, you know?
Right.
So, but because there are other feminism, and there is the marketing feminism, the feminism that the media talks about it, it's hard to overcome, and that people really understand what is feminism, that you are not a hater, that you are not excluding this or this, it's just a set of ideas. It's complicated to convince people to get the information through, and feminism, as I said, is a set of ideas. So I can tell you that I personally also like, I'm also an heterosexual woman. So I also like when it doesn't need to be etiquette, as you would say in German, like where the guy always opened the doors. But I like what we would call gentlemen, right? I do not bother because it's also maybe a sign of how he was brought and maybe how to show how he cares, though he doesn't know. It's not well because not everybody knows about feminism, So you can be yourself. You can be a feminist and say, for me, many women will disagree with this. Many lesbian women, the feminists will, it's. But for me, and I can say I'm a feminist too. There is no problem in that as long as you just don't maybe start demanding it and maybe make a kind of a sexual thing. Then when we are raising the women, the girls, we can also tell them, hey, you can also open the door for your friend or husband, or women also open the door and they are also kind. And maybe with friendships, we just can maybe just don't do it like see it like a gentleman thing. I see it more like maybe a kind of attention thing, a kind of delicacy of care.
It's just being polite. I feel like just
polite,
being a nice person.
also for my friends, because I also have a set of expectations that I have from my friends, and they also have to. Maybe you also. They also have to behave this, or you expect they behave this or like this, and when they do, then maybe it's not the right friendship because that's how you have also the right to set boundaries and expectations as long as it's I would say it's not forced.
Yeah.
So, but many many women maybe would disagree on that. I don't really know much about it, but I see it like this. I never read something about it in this sense, so it's a nice question.
And then the other thing I wanted to get your take on is about your spirituality for the last little bit, and then we'll wrap up.
Mm-hmm. So, as I said in introducing myself, I lost a cousin when I was 12, and it set me in a spiritual journey. And I researched and researched and researched and did and this and that, and everywhere you can think where I could. Of course, I didn't have access to everywhere, but everywhere I could go, to African religions, to Hare Krishna, to Spiritism, and of course, raised Catholic. I made the first communion, and because you do it at 9 in Brazil, and I was really a Christian, but I could not agree with the answer of the Bible and the other texts as a child, or what I heard as a child. So I started searching for it, and with time, it's like you start doing because you don't really believe it, but you want to see it. And somewhere in this, if you are lucky, somewhere in this path, your faith develops with, let's say, the kind of the feedback. And when I was in great distress, and I always had very nice mystical experience, always in dreams and everything, also already as a Wiccan, as a witch, then as I prayed to a god or different gods, I would have a feedback as I prayed to the goddess, and I started to believe and research more about goddess and give. Then I really had a feedback. And this is something that came even before the feminism. And when I was researching about feminism, I saw that there are many in radical feminism who see this connection, who make this connection of the state of nature and also research the history of the goddess and the beginning of the patriarchy, and they connect that the situation we are in is because we are becoming more and more apart from goddess, and that misogyny is deep rooted in a hate for nature. And I think we should go back to nature, go back to searching for real answers. So, like, why science insists in ignoring the invisible? You know, I think they don't do it. There's a lot of science that we don't are informed about it, but I think it's really something logical if you start researching it about, so for example, how the Indian culture have preserved what we could call quantum physics in the Vedas. So there is much in spirituality that I think it's very logical, because for me it's very important that it's logical. And as I said that I found this group of women, I thought this is essential for me to talk about, and that was something that the world really needs, this come back to spirituality. Because imagine if we start to research about it, and with so many taboos, and if we understand that there is a life after this life, how are we going to change our behavior? If we really understand that you are living this life, you have limited time, it can be over tomorrow, but you are going to be responsible for the things you did here, and you are going to pay for the things you did here. It's a change of paradigm. You change your personality, you change your actions, you change your way of seeing the earth, the women, the animals. You start maybe question it, why I'm watching this porn, this is so dehumanizing. Why am I enjoying women being spanked and suffering? It can really, spirituality, it's something that can change society. And it doesn't have to be with a leader today, it doesn't have to be with a religion. Do it like me. You know, you do, if you are interested, you will research and you will research and you research, and you do it for yourself, and just try it out. Meditate. You don't even be religious, but meditate. Just understand maybe that we are connected. You don't even have to believe in religion. Maybe just understand that we are all connected, and that your actions are going, if you don't want to be to the spiritual work, that is going to be consequences for what you do, for your environment, for your friendships, for the planet. I think it's something very important to make people remember this possibility, because when you talk about it, people are going to say already, because of culture is being repressed, say that you are not rational, that you are kind of crazy and people laugh about it, but it has nothing to do with crazy. If you find out what with meditation, what people are able to achieve with meditation alone. There's so many things that we don't understand that should really be brought back, because it has the potential to change the way how we think. And for women themselves, because there is also an aspect that I cannot forget, the part of the history. Even if you are not religious, if you know as a woman that you are not, that you are also an image of goddess, because in the Abrahamic religions and many others, the man is the image of God. But we have to get back the knowledge, and this is history, that we women were also, actually, we were the first goddesses.
Well, I think that with that, it's so tough. I mean, it makes sense. It's logical when you talk about it. But with the history stuff, it's such a weird time because, like, I know in New York and in the US, they're taking down pieces of history and they are basically trying to erase it. So it's like, you would think that people who, when they want to shut other people up, they want to censor them, they would realize that if they want to censor other people, eventually they'll be censored. So it's like, instead of censoring, just let everyone say what they have to say. And they're erasing history, so it makes it really difficult to do that,
But
or
this
to
is
learn.
also part of things. So you can go back to another question and something from the things you can do. You can, for example, I had a Kindle. I have a Kindle. I read a lot, and I was buying things for my Kindle. But with time, I am seeing books being really banned, like in Canada, you know? So I started buying the books, and we have the responsibility to keeping this knowledge, because to give people hope, we can make an analogy to um, Native American religion, and even maybe to the Tantric Buddhism, that when China invaded Tibet, that the Dalai Lama and other monks, the Tantric Buddhists, they have to flee and keep their knowledge somewhere else. But they come back. So what I want to say is we keep this knowledge about women spirituality. We don't lose the hope, because the laws are being like the way it is, and this is really a fight like David and Goliath, the women against the machine. But we gotta have hope. As I said, like in China or Native American culture, when we were invaded, it was kind of 60 million Native Americans that died after America, the three Americas were colonized and invaded, and still the Native Americans, they couldn't do the rituals until the 70s. Right. They were forbidden, but it's growing back.
Yeah, it
the
is.
Knowledge was kept safe, and it's coming back. So it's give hope, have hope, talk about it. We can make it. We can change it.
Knowledge is power.
It time, but yes, but it can take time, but we can do it, because there are cultures that they always parts from culture, they're almost erased, but they are so important.
I agree.
They are so truth. You cannot erase the truth. So for many centuries, we believed that the sun would turn around the earth. We believed we were the center, and that was the official, that was the mainstream, and it changed. People like Galileo and Giordano Bruno, for another ideas, they were tortured and they suffered. It's like historical. This is not a new phenomenon where you try to erase past.
Mm-hmm.
That it's been happening and happening and happening, but people are keeping their culture, and that's what you gotta do. And things change, and with the internet is something that there are many critics now about Facebook and everything, but we have to preserve every piece of freedom we have because the internet connects us and uh, make us able to change his ideas and organize
Mm-hmm.
and make pressure. The politicians, we reach the point where if they do not censor us, we are going to pressure, 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 and the things will start to change not only online because we talk online, but we act in our real life. That's the important thing. Just talking and talking and talking online and don't do the real thing, it's not working. We have to do the real thing, but organize it.
Yeah. Well, and I
Nothing
think
will.
that this is so hopeful because, talking to you, talking to other women, and you're not, I'm in New York and you're not. So it's reassuring and it's hopeful to know that we are in it together and there are other people out there and you're not just by yourself.
Yeah, that's really nice. And that's why you have to protect that. I see a tendency of people thinking, because Facebook and they don't act enough like actually agree. But at the other, if you see it at the other side, who is going to define what's hate and what is not? If saying a woman doesn't have a penis is hate, then it's an abuse of power.
Yeah.
So we have to also defend not only Facebook, other spaces, but things can really change. I prefer now. I know it's like this. It's just historical, but it's a tough time. It's a tough time that I have to make you go back and snap. Please cut this side where I just said my name without thinking about it, and as it just can not flow naturally. And even that I have to hide my face because if the things were not so complicated, maybe I would be able to
Mm-hmm.
show my face and not be so shy. And it has to change because it's very difficult and very complicated to people about something that means a lot because it's not something that I'm going to let it go.
Right. Well,
This
I
is
think
too
that
important. This is
you
too important to let it go.
you post though very like you post statistics, you post real numbers, raw data, like you show things on your page. I'm not on your Facebook page, but I will have you say what that is so people can find you. But on your Instagram page, you post things that are it's real and it's good to see because if you're a woman or a man and you're in touch with the reality and you want to see, like, it's reassuring to know that there are other people out there that think of you, think like-minded or similarly, because there's so much woke stuff happening on social media, and it just overpopulates, and it gets to the point where it goes back to what you're saying, like you feel like you're just alone, like by yourself with your thoughts, thinking, am I crazy? Is this really what's happening in the world?
Yeah, exactly. It's a therapy for me. Uh, I I've been diagnosed with many different um, psychological. Let's say I'm a borderline, and I also have anxiety, and with the borderline, sometimes you are also depressed, and um, as a young adult, um, I tried suicide. So I had a very tough life, and I feel isolated, and I see the world with like everybody is somehow so like me. It's hard to find someone who is, if they really look, if they will not some kind of depression or hopelessness, or maybe chronic pain or whatever. So you you search for people who feel like this, and you talk about it, and you say what's the problem, and you talk what you see. Is a kind of therapy for me. I do it not also for meeting this woman and give a place for women to feel sane again. I do it also that I have to put this energy out, because I feel so much. I am angry for what's happening, but will I do any kind of violence? No, of course not. I use my creativity. I meditate. Is I do memes then, and then I write tests.
Yeah.
It's to keep me sane, and I get the feedback that I keep other women. I do not keep them, but I give them a little bit of sanity.
And where can you be found?
As long as they accept it, because I'm always here and there, sometimes blocked. It's the Vulva Temple of Witchcraft on Facebook, and the same Vulva Temple in Instagram. And I even have a domain just in case I get blocked. And I also have a spinster. That's it's a kind of Twitter, but it's from women for women.
Oh, I've never heard of it.
It's not. It's still growing, because it's hard to find funds so they can really develop and software and everything. You have to use it with your browser. But I hear there are some new social media appearing. So if I get blocked, you will find me somewhere else. Maybe I will just give myself a break, but I hope to keep online, because though I'm very harassed, and if I slip, you get blocked. But I hope I can at least keep talking to people. And now we have this video, and though it was confused. This is the first time I do it, so I couldn't really make sense. I think maybe it was not very. I did not say the smartest things ever, but we now have this video, and the message is out there.
I think that
Women, if God disappoints you, search for goddess. And if men disappoint you, maybe try with another woman.
Well, I think that the point is that we're talking about it, and we're spreading awareness and knowledge and asking questions, and that's really all we can do right now. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Meditate. Think for yourself. I have to tell you, something that should be taught in schools. I don't know if you are, as an athlete, if you also meditate.
I think my meditation is my workout. I work out, and that's my meditation.
Yeah. Actually, you can meditate walking. You can meditate working out. So if you are just done in a mind space, where it's also a kind of meditation, when you do not think about anything, just letting your mind flow, it's also a kind of meditation. So, but you also then understand how your psychic stream is important. So your discipline. So meditation also helps with being disciplined, and it's to concentrate, to think, to release a little bit from this excessive information. We are also in our telephones.
Yeah.
And information. So it's really something important. I want to, before we wrap it up, I want to say this kind of things, really, because I don't want people to think it's all about transgender. This is not. This started really as a kind of self-defense, as a kind of where I can release my energy and meet women. I am alone, and I speak about this topic because I am defending myself. I am defending myself. In the future, there are laws, there are plenty, and there are laws. In Brazil, for example, I have a friend that is really investigated by the police because she said, investigated by the police, and in Brazil, the laws make transphobia. What I say, this would not be transphobia, but what she said is, she said online, basically, that lesbians don't like penis, and she's been really investigated for transphobia in a land where people are really murdered for what I call transphobia, but she's being investigated and maybe be 2 years in prison for that, because it's the crime of racism. You cannot pay bail. You just
Terrible.
go to jail 2 years for that. And this is not hate, and I am speaking. I'm sorry that I had to wear a mask, because for me it's already a challenge. That for me it's a big step, even with the mask, doing this interview, because I am really shy and I did not want it. But as a kind of prevention already, also I am speaking up. I am letting this registered for history. I know it's just.
Yeah, but who knows? It goes back to what you're saying. We have to talk about it. We have to bring things to light and openly discuss, because if we're not, then who's going to?
Exactly. I'm showing, hey, I am not what you are saying. This is not the reasons that I'm doing what I'm doing. I do not hate anybody. I despise any kind of violence. How many times I cried watching videos from girls and boys who did transition, because we are making double mastectomies in girls that are 15,
It's horrible.
16. My God, you cannot smoke, you cannot have sex, because this would be rape. You cannot make a tattoo, and you are really. And in some countries, the doctors who say, "Hey, wait a little, maybe you are not transgender," they maybe pay fines for it.
Yeah, the doctors are getting they're not allowed to ask, and it's like,
Yeah.
a doctor's a scientist. A scientist's number one question or number one job is to ask questions.
Yeah, we are failing a whole generation, and I just am doing my duty because it's so important. Since I was 16, I said I am an anarchist, a religious person, even before that. And for me, it's really, hey, we have to care for each other. How can we see what's happening when we are quiet?
Yeah. Well, no, I think that it's kind of that simple. I mean, with social media, it makes it really tough because some people are doing things for attention and, sponsors or whatever, attention. It's all attention, clicks. But it's like exactly what you said. We're responsible for each other to some extent, and we should care about each other. So how do we care about each other if we're not allowed to ask questions to each other?
Exactly. We it is our responsibility. We have to talk about it. We have to act, and because the the planet is not going to be saved. The politicians are not going to now have all the solutions, and they are going to enlighten us and impose the right solutions. No, it's not like this. We have to demand. We have to participate. I think the best would be we do a huge Telegram group, and we are going to rule the world like this. We decide together what we are going to do democratically, because that today in the West you are being censored like this, and then they dare to talk about China and in Russia or what have you, when we are living this here, and I'm being really blocked to do something more important, because I have to say people. You are not your avatar. There is a reality. To change the world, you have to face reality. You know, to take the root of the problem, because otherwise it's not happening. And I see also a momentum where there is these movements are growing and growing, and at least in Germany, Fridays for Future is you see Greta, and I had not much hope. I thought it was really kind of too capitalistic still, but they are getting angry, you know. They are getting angry because things have to change. It's nice when people start reacting, and you do not have to start it in perfectly, but start, and you will learn and you will make mistakes, but do something. No violence, never. Violence is not needed.
But I agree. I think that that's a perfect way to wrap this up, is by saying do something. You know, stand up, have your voice heard in a non-violent way. You know, be courageous and do it.
That's very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. I have a lot of experience for being the first.
My absolute pleasure.
And I also like to thank every woman that hit the like and support me. And thank you very much. I really, really love you all. I pray for you. I meditate. I do it every day. You think that my main thing is the online shit? It is not. I do meditate. I do Kundalini. I do Shakti work. I do light work for you, for all of us without exception. Actually, for all of us in every plane. I'm really a crazy woman, and I believe in living a multiverse. And I pray for every these beings, but especially for the women, the ones that are suffering very much. I thank you, and please pray for each other. Search for Goddess, call Goddess, look for the big feedback, buy books, research about it. Women's history, please, let's be the change.
Definitely.